During my plus 10 years career in finance, I've interviewed more than 1,000 applicants and I've been myself through more than 100 interviews. I've seen people making the same mistakes all over again and not landing their dream job, although they had a great CV on paper, and with a little preparation, they could have succeeded. So in this video, I will talk about the 6 most common mistakes people make during job interviews, and I will show you how to avoid them. Mistake number 1, lack of preparation. Many candidates underestimate the amount of time it takes to prepare for an interview. They go with little to no preparation into an interview and they try to come up with answers on the spot. This often leads to really unconvincing and unstructured responses, especially when it comes to common interview questions like, "Tell me about yourself," or "Why should we hire you?" Many candidates fail to prepare for it as they assume the interviewer has read their CV, which in reality is often not the case. Likewise, when the interviewer asks, "Why do you want to join our company?" candidates give very broad and generic answers as they haven't really researched the company enough. So here is what you can do to avoid these common pitfalls in 4 steps. Step number 1, research the company and understand the company's history, culture, past financial performance, and recent news. For this, you can use the company's website, news articles, and any materials published if it's a listed company. Just make sure you understand what makes a company so special and what differentiates it from its competitors, because this information will then help you to come up with a compelling answer to the question, "Why do you want to join our company?" And it will show the interview that you have done your homework and you've researched the company. Step number 2, understand the role. Carefully read the job description again and identify what are the key qualities and requirements that are necessary to perform this job. Then go through your own CV and look at your previous experience and think of what skills do you have that are relevant for this role and how could you position it during the interview. This will help you in answering questions like, "Why did you apply for this job?" and "Why should we hire you?" Step number 3, write a script with your answers to common interview questions. Writing a script helps you organize your thoughts and ensure that you cover all the key points you want to make. You don't need to script the entire answers, but you can instead write down bullet points that outline the key points you really want to convey during the interview. It is important to use the research that you've previously done on the company and on the role for some of these answers. So be as specific as possible and also put in some facts and some numbers in your answers. But be careful, don't think this script will serve you for any other interview that you will have for the rest of your life. No, in fact, you will have to adapt this script every single time for every job you're applying to, because the job comes with specifics and the company is obviously different, so you will have to tailor your answers every single time. Lastly, step number 4, rehearse and practice. Rehearse your answers from the interview script, but don't memorize. Instead, rehearse your answers out loud and get comfortable with the content. Practice delivering your answers in different ways so that you're comfortable with the content, but you're not locked into a specific phrase. Also, you may consider to conduct mock interviews with a friend or a mentor to practice responding to those questions in a more dynamic way rather than just strictly following a script. Mistake number 2, poor communication. Often when I have interviewed people, they are either giving me these very long answers, more than 3, 4, 5 minutes long, and they turn the interview into a one-sided monologue, really losing my attention. Or on the contrary, sometimes the candidates give very short answers, like 30 seconds to a minute long for literally every question I ask, that it really feels like I'm a detective interrogating a suspect and trying to get out all possible information I could. Ideally, the interview should be a dialogue with both sides engaging, and all answers that the candidate provides naturally lead to the next question. So here's how you can improve your communication skills and avoid those pitfalls. First of all, structure your answers. Use the interview script to structure your answers and decide on the key points you want to bring out across during the interview. For each question, aim for a 2-minute answer. This is really the sweet spot where you keep the interviewer's attention and then you don't go overboard with too many details. I also suggest using a timer when you rehearse so you see how long you need more or less for each answer. Make sure you listen actively during the interview. Allow the interviewer to finish their question before you respond. Interrupting can come across as rude or overly eager, and you might miss some important information. Also, clarify when needed. If you don't fully understand the question, it's okay. It's better to ask for clarification than to answer incorrectly. You could say, "Could you please clarify what you mean by that?" This shows that you're engaged and that you're eager to provide a relevant response. During the interview, you should also watch out that you speak at a moderate pace. Speaking too quickly can make you difficult to understand, and it may convey nervousness. On the other hand, if you speak too slowly, it can come across as a lack of confidence or preparedness. So aim for a moderate pace that allows your words to be clear and understandable. Finally, read the room. Pay attention to the interviewer's energy and reactions and adjust your communication style accordingly. If they seem disengaged, you might need to be more concise or dynamic. But if they ask follow-up questions, it's a sign that they want more detail, so be prepared to elaborate on your answers. Mistake number 3, generic responses. This is probably one of the most common mistakes that I see over 90% of all candidates making. They give very broad and generic responses like, "Oh, I'm good at managing projects," or "I work very well in a team." This unfortunately really lacks specific or measurable examples that demonstrate these points. The danger is that with providing very vague statements, the interviewer won't really remember you, and you don't stand out from other candidates. I'm often interviewing more than 10 candidates on a given day, and what I remember in the end of the day are those candidates that had impactful stories to tell with specific examples. So here's what you can do to give impactful answers during your interview and stand out. First of all, be specific and avoid vague statements like, "I work well under pressure and I've completed several successful projects in the past." Instead, what you should be doing is giving a very specific example that includes numbers and proves your point. Like, for example, "I work well under pressure as I demonstrated during my last internship, when I was tasked with only 12 hours notice to conduct a very detailed company analysis of more than 30 pages for a potential 30 million investment target, and my report directly influenced the decision to move forward with the investment." Do you see what the difference is? This has so much more color and numbers, and it gives me a situation that demonstrates you are able to work under pressure, rather than just giving me a broad statement, "Oh, I work under pressure." The next thing you should do is to tailor your answers to the job. When you give specific examples from your past work experience, make sure you pick the right examples and skills that are relevant to this job. For example, if the role you're interviewing for requires strong analytical skills, then you should find an example from your past work experience where you demonstrated those analytical skills. Highlight how your actions in your past roles would translate to success into the new role. Lastly, identify your unique skills. Go through your previous work experience and your past performance reviews and think of situations you were praised by your boss or former colleagues. Identify what you did well in those situations and what skills you developed. Maybe you gained a reputation in your previous company for being that Excel wizard that knew over 100 shortcuts and you typed so fast on your keyboard as if you were playing a piano. Or you were a great mentor to junior staff, overseeing 3 analysts and 2 interns. Find what is unique to you and makes you memorable, but it also has to be relevant to the job you're interviewing for. Mistake number 4, poor behavior. Poor behavior during a job interview can severely damage your chances of getting hired, regardless really of your qualifications. So understanding what poor behavior means and how to avoid it is really crucial for your interview success. Let's look at the 7 deadly sins to avoid during the interview at all times. Sin number 1, arrogance or overconfidence. While confidence is important, coming across as too arrogant or dismissive can really alienate the interviewer. It is important to balance self-assurance with humility and respect. At the same time, self-doubt will make you appear unqualified for the job. Sin number 3, lack of enthusiasm. Appearing disinterested or bored might convey a message to the interviewer that you're really not interested in this opportunity. So be aware of your body language, because things like crossing your arms or not keeping eye contact could mean that you're either really nervous or you're really not interested in this job. Sin number 4, complaining about previous employers. Speaking negatively about former employers, managers, or colleagues is a complete no-go, and you could be perceived as difficult to work with. So even if you had negative experiences with previous employers, frame your answers positively. Focus on what you learned and how those experiences have prepared you for your next role. Sin number 5, bringing up salary or benefits too soon. Initiating discussions about salary, benefits, or vacation time too early in the interview process can make it seem like you're more interested in the perks than in the role itself. So it's better to let the interviewer bring up those topics at the appropriate time. Sin number 6, arriving late to an interview. Whilst I understand that life can happen to all of us, if you come late to the interview, it will just show a lack of organization and reliability. So that's why it's so important that you put in a time buffer for any unexpected events before the interview. Sin number 7, inappropriate attire. Dressing too casually or not in line with the company's culture can leave a negative impression. Likewise, if you overdress, you may come across as too arrogant or self-assured. That's why it is important that you research the company's expected dress code beforehand, or just ask the person that invited you to the interview what the dress code is. Mistake number 5, not preparing questions for the interviewer. Interviewers typically give candidates the opportunity to ask questions at the very end of the interview. Very often I've heard from candidates that I was interviewing, "Oh, it's all good, I don't have any questions." Watch out, this doesn't mean the candidate is so smart that he's figured it all out and has no questions. On the contrary, this is a red flag, as it conveys a lack of interest and preparation. It also shows that the candidate is not doing a proper due diligence of his or her future employer. Remember, an interview is a two-sided process where both the candidate and the interviewer are trying to find out if they are a good fit. It's very similar like dating. Another mistake I see often is when people ask generic or easily searchable questions like, "Oh, so who is the CEO and what is the culture like at your company?" If you ask questions that could be easily answered by a quick Google search or look at the company's website, it really indicates that you haven't really done your homework. So here's how to avoid these mistakes. Before the interview, prepare questions and come up with 3 to 5 questions that are thought through and you would really want to have some answers to. These could either relate to the role, to the team, to the company, the culture. Make sure you tailor your questions based on the specifics of the job description, the company research you did before, or any other information you gathered. Because this will then show the interviewer that you have researched the company and you will definitely stand out from most candidates who probably haven't put in that much work. Also, what's important is to ask open-ended questions that require more than a yes/no answer, because they are better for the conversation and they will provide you with much more deeper insights. So for example, good questions to ask would be, could you tell me more about the team I would be working with? What are the biggest challenges the company is currently facing? Mistake number 6, failure to follow up after the interview. Failure to follow up after a job interview is a common mistake that can negatively impact your chances of getting hired. Following up is important because it reinforces your interest in the role, it helps you stand out from other candidates, and it keeps you top of mind with the interviewer. So here's a detailed look on how to do it effectively. First of all, timing. Send your thank you email within 24 hours of the interview. This ensures that your message arrives while the interview is still fresh in the interviewer's mind. Then make sure to personalize it. Address the email to the person who interviewed you. In the email, thank the interviewer for their time, express your continued interest in the role, and briefly reiterate why you believe you're a strong fit for the position. You could also mention a specific topic or discussion point from the interview to make it a little bit more personal. As a bonus, you could also consider following up on LinkedIn and add the interviewer to your network, or maybe even writing a small message over there. But generally, I always suggest the email because it has way much more impact and weight than a LinkedIn message. Nevertheless, you can always do a combination of both, an email plus adding the person on LinkedIn. I think that's more than enough. So here you go. These were the 6 mistakes to avoid in job interviews. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel for more finance and career related content. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Good luck with your interviews.